Hey everyone. Listen, welcome back to Raw Encounters. I'm your host, Darren, and today we're going to dive into topics that often get misunderstood. We're talking about intimacy and not just sex. See, when we think of intimacy, we tend to get straight to the physical aspect. Hmm. But it's so much more to it. Emotional, intimacy, vulnerability, trust. These are huge parts of building meaningful connections, whether you're in a romantic relationship or not. So today, we're going to explore what intimacy really means, how to cultivate in a different area of your life, and why it's the foundation for healthier relationship. When you hear the words intimacy, what comes to mind? For many, it's tied to sex, but today we're going to go deep. I want to give you a brief summary of what's going to be going on. I want to introduce you to the concept of intimacy that's more than just physical or sexual closeness. It's emotional, mental, and even spiritual, is what I learned. What I want you to learn from this, I want you to have a variety of intimacies that you will explore emotionally, non-romantic, and self-intimacy, and more. So I ask you all today, think of an intimacy moment. Didn't involve sex. I want you to hold on to that memory as you listen. So you ready to dive deep? So let's dive into sections with finding the examples of actionable advice so that way each conversation resonates with you all. Okay? Number one, defining intimacy. I'll give you an example. It was a perfect example. When I was younger, I thought that intimacy was just about physical closeness. But one of my most intimacy moments that I ever had was with a close friend. I sat on the floor sharing childhood stories and biggest insecurities. There wasn't any physical touch, but I felt connected on a deeper level than I ever felt before. I want to encourage you all to redefine intimacy for yourselves. Think of a moment when you felt deeply connected with someone without it being sexual or romantic. That moment when your partner or friend made that connection and you felt good about it. Think about that. Number two, vulnerability. I got a perfect example for this. This is going to be a great episode. I used to think that being vulnerable meant I was weak, but one time I was struggling with something personal and I decided to open up to a friend instead of keeping it to myself. Their response surprised the heck out of me. They shared something equally vulnerably, and it depended on our relationship in a way I didn't even expect. So take a small, safe step towards vulnerability. For instance, and I'll give you a perfect example. They could be started by sharing personal fear or hope with someone that they trust. Challenge them to observe how being vulnerable strengthens that connection. Number three, intimacy and non-romantic. I'll give you a perfect example. A listener once shared with me, and this is us just randomly talking. This wasn't, scripted or anything. Once told me how after a personal loss, their best friend was the one who showed up daily to check in, to listen, to even offer support. That friendship becomes an anchor, and that bond grew more intimate than romantic relationship. That had me shocked. So what I'm encouraging you is to nurture your intimacy and your friendship by being intentional, by spending time together. Suggest they schedule a one-on-one activity, grabbing coffee, or even taking a walk where they focus on deep conversations rather than just hanging out. Keep that in mind. And I do have one of my special friends that we can just relate. We are able to have disagreements and have understandings, but still know how to love on each other and respect each other. Number four, the impact on emotional intimacy on sexual intimacy. A couple I spoke to mentioned how their sex life improved when they started being emotionally vulnerable with each other. It wasn't about new techniques or more frequency. It was about feeling emotional connection. They would check in with each other about their feelings regularly, and that emotional closeness naturally spill over into physical intimacy. So, me being completely honest with you, schedule a time to talk and open with your partner about how they're feeling emotionally outside the bedroom. Encourage them to see how this conversation can impact connections, but also possibly their physical relationship later. Okay. Number 5, intimacy in relationships. This is a very important one. Okay. I'll give you an example. I remember a time when a friend of mine was upset with their partner for not being supportive enough during a stressful time. We all have the moments. Life be life, and correct. When they finally talked about it, it turned out that the partner had no idea how they were feeling. The conversation shifted their dynamic, and they realized how important clear communication was in building intimacy. So I say to you all, offer a simple communication exercise where you can take turns sharing how you feel about recent events or moments without interruption. The person practice active listening and reflects, but heard what you're saying. You know what this builds? It builds intimacy through understanding and empathy. Keep that in mind because it's very important. It's not always just about sex. Sometimes it's about connecting in a different mannerism. Number 6, barriers to intimacy. I know you're like, I got a lot of examples, but I want to give you the raw encounters. I once met someone who I had a hard time trusting because of the past betrayals in relationship. They built emotional walls thinking it would be protecting them, but they find that the walls also kept them from experiencing real intimacy. With time in therapy, which I am in therapy, they learn to let those walls down and safe to find themselves forming deeper connections. I encourage you all to be in therapy. If you don't listen to anything else I say, I'm just a sex expert. I'm not certified for being an expert and therapist, okay? But I will give you the fundamentals to being successful. So I encourage you, reflect on any barriers that may have prevented you from being fully intimate, such as past hurt, fear, or rejection. Suggest small steps like being open about feelings and low risk situations. Considering therapy if past trauma is significant. The difference between sex and intimacy, and this is number 7, and I got an example for you. A lot of people make mistakes for intimacy, but they're not the same. A friend of mine, how they had a lot of casual sex after breakup, hoping it will make them feel connected, but instead that made them feel even more disconnected. It wasn't until they started working on emotional intimacy with themselves and others that they felt fulfilled. Have an open dialogue with your partner or even yourself about what intimacy means to you. Exploring non sexual ways of feeling close, like cuddling, talking, spending quality time together, just to see how it affects the relationship. Number 8, set self intimacy. I'll give you an example. I remember when I started focusing on self care and self awareness, and I began to notice how much easier it was to connect with others. When I took the time to understand my own emotional needs, I could communicate them better and building healthy relationships. One day, I spent an hour, and I literally lied to you not, journaling about what made me truly connect to myself. And I always refer back to it when I have a moment. That simple act was an eye opener. I'll be completely honest with you. This is just me in the spiritual energy that I'm in now, which is going to be an episode about energy and spiritual. Take 10 to 15 minutes each day practicing self intimacy. This can be through journaling, meditating, or even just taking a walk in nature to reflect on feelings. The goal for them is to understand their own emotional needs before sharing them with others. Number nine, how intimacy involves long-term relationship. When I was working maybe a couple of weeks ago, a listener once shared how 15 years of marriage, their relationship, how it evolved. They no longer rely on the same intense passion they had in the beginning, but found a deeper connection in the small daily routines, like making coffee together, random, in the morning, sitting down for a quick chat. At the end of the day, that consistent connection became their form of intimacy. What I suggest to you all, if long-term relationships, create new rituals or moments of connection. Rather if it's weekly date nights, or 90, 10-minute check-in with no distractions. These small things help nurture intimacy over time. Number 10, myths and misconceptions. A common myth is intimacy always have involved grand gestures and romantic, like when we see movies. But from some intimacy moments are simple and subtle. One of my most intimacy moments or intimate moments with my partner was just sitting in a comfortable silence, knowing we didn't need any space to be filled. You get what I'm saying? It was just more connection with words. So it was just silence. It was just silence. No, we didn't need to fill any kind of space with words to feel connected. We were just sitting there. Redefine what intimacy looks like in your lives. To look at the small, everyday moments of connection. Whether if it's a long hug, a shared meal, or meaningful conversation. Appreciate those intimacy experiences. Number 11, one listener shared a story about how they felt most intimate with their partner during a difficult time. They were physically close due to distance, but through daily heartfelt conversation, they felt emotionally than before. That showed them that intimacy didn't always have to be about physical together. Submit your own experience with intimacy, whether it's a challenge that you face or a moment of deep connection. Always submit to your experience, whether it's a challenge that you face, a moment of deep connection. You know, maybe, I could possibly offer a regular segment where I address the stories and questions to foster a sense of community amongst our audience. You just never know. Number 12 is important. Self-intimacy. Focusing with intimacy and self-intimacy has built me to who I am now and to love on me. Never forget about yourself, but also learn yourself. Learn what you love. Love what makes you happy, what makes you in peace, what keeps you in peace. When you're having them challenging moments, keep that in mind to just jot down what makes you happy, what makes you smile, what makes you at peace. Before we can be intimate with others, we need to understand connection with ourselves. So I challenge y'all today to spend daily time reflecting on your own emotional needs through journaling or mindful meditation. Please. Okay? But listen, that's all for today's episode. I really hope that this conversation about intimacy beyond just sex has given you a fresh perspective on how we connect with others. Remember, intimacy comes in many forms, whether it's emotional, physical, spiritual, or even intellectual. It's something that we all need to nurture, whether we're in a relationship or focusing on self growth. If you truly enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave a review. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your experience and how you build intimacy in your own life. So feel free to reach out on all of my platforms and my email. All will be attached as well. And you have any topics or questions in the future episodes, send them my way. I always love hearing from you. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, stay connected and keep exploring what intimacy means to you. I'm Darren, your host, and have a great day.